One of the most baffling mysteries in nautical history took place in 1872, with the disappearance of 10 crew and passengers from the Mary Celeste, an American merchant brigantine. However, over the years, there have been many other similar mysteries at sea where the crew and passengers completely vanished. The following are 4 such stories. Rosalie, 1840. Rosalie was a large French merchant ship that was built in 1838 and was made up of 222 tons of timber. In 1840, the Rosalie had been en route from Hamburg to Havana with a cargo of wine, fruit, silks, and other various items. However, the Rosalie was discovered in the Atlantic Ocean with sails fully set and appeared to be on course to a destination. However, there was one very big problem. There was absolutely nobody on board. When the ship was boarded, they found a canary along with hens and a cat, and the poor creatures were all half-starved. Overall, the ship was in good condition as it continued to sail on a relatively calm ocean. All of the produce was in perfect condition, and when they checked the captain's cabin, all of the papers were secure and in place. The soundings gave 3 feet of water in the hold, but there was no leak whatsoever. When the other cabins were checked, they found them furnished with several articles along with the ladies' toiletries, together with a quantity of ladies' clothing, which had been thrown hastily together, all showing that the cabins had only recently been deserted. So where was the captain, crew and passengers, as there appeared to be no reason for the ship to have been deserted? Everything on board was in tip-top condition with no leaks, and there was plenty of food and water. There was no sign whatsoever of a violent attack, such as pirates, as there was no sign of a struggle, no traces of blood. Proof that there had been no criminal intent was the fact that the cargo, all valuables and any money, was still on board and everything was untouched. Every single person on board had mysteriously vanished without a trace, and no trace of them was ever found. James B. Chester, 1857. On February the 28th, 1855, about 1,100 kilometres southwest of Azores, a region of Portugal in the mid-Atlantic, a merchant ship sighted the barque James B. Chester sailing in an erratic manner, and when they signalled the vessel, they got no response. The ship was first boarded by mate Thomas, who found the ship completely deserted, but there were signs that the ship had been involved in some sort of struggle, where the cabins had been ransacked and the tables and chairs had been overturned. The clothing had been scattered along with books, and the ship's papers and the ship's compass were missing. However, if the ship had been assailed by pirates, they were not after goods, as the cargo and provisions had not been taken. There were many questions asked as to why the ship had been abandoned and what had happened to the crew and passengers. If there had been a pirate attack, where were the violent signs of a struggle, such as blood? If the crew themselves had looted the ship, what they had taken was not worth abandoning the ship in the middle of a huge ocean. Other questions asked whether the crew had panicked in a storm and jumped into the lifeboats or left because they were terrified for some unknown reason, but there were also claims that none of the boats were missing. Like many incidents where they were unable to find answers, rumours abound where the crew murdered the captain and fled and was picked up by a Dutch ship called the Two Friends. The crew was later picked up in Savannah and arrested for murder. Another rumour was that rum was to blame for the whole incident, resulting in a drunken frenzy where panic then ensued. As with many maritime mysteries that take place on an ocean miles from anywhere, finding reliable truth and evidence is extremely difficult. Resolven, 1884. SV Resolven was a 143-ton brigantine built from softwood in Nova Scotia. In the 1880s, she was principally a carrier, and the main cargo was fish. On the 27th of August 1884, Resolven left Harbour Grace, Newfoundland, and set sail for Snug Harbour in Labrador. On the 27th of August, she was spotted by a British naval vessel, HMS Mallard, off the coast of Catalina, where her sails were spread, and it was steering in a strange manner in relatively calm waters, 63 miles from a destination in Labrador. The British vessel then signalled the ship, but got no reply. The captain of HMS Mallard then sent a boarding party to inspect the Resolven. When the officers and men boarded the ship, they found it deserted with no sign of life. However, there had been signs of recent activity, as ashes in the galley were still warm, and there was food prepared and the lamps were still burning. One side of the ship appeared to have sustained some minimal damage. The last entry in the logbook had been written 6 hours before being sighted. However, there were no signs of damage either by natural events or a recent skirmish. The officers and crew spotted a large iceberg nearby and theorised that because none of the 7 crew members or 4 passengers were familiar with the northern waters, they believed they may have panicked when the ship was damaged by ice and may have overreacted and launched a lifeboat. However, no bodies were found. But the captain, crew and passengers were nowhere to be found, and they had somehow vanished into thin air. Seemingly, they had taken off in the ship's lifeboat, and they were in a hurry. The ship was towed into the nearby port, refitted, and put out to sea again. The mystery of this ship earned it the nickname the Welsh Mary Celeste. Unfortunately, the ship was doomed when 3 years later the Resolven with its cargo of timber was wrecked while returning to Newfoundland from Nova Scotia. After official inquiries as to the fate of the ship or its crew and passengers, they could find no substantial reason why they had suddenly abandoned the ship. Carroll A. Deering, 1921. Carroll A. Deering was a 5-masted commercial schooner that was launched on April 4, 1919 in Bath, Maine. On August 22, 1920, the schooner set sail from Norfolk, Virginia with a crew of 10 men and a cargo of coal, and it set sail for Rio de Janeiro. A few days later, the captain, William H. Merritt, suddenly fell ill and was quickly replaced by Captain W.B. Wormel. However, the ship continued without too much delay and managed to deliver its cargo on time and was not due to return until December. However, on January 29, 1921, she was spotted by the lighthouse keeper, Captain Jacobson, aboard the Cape Lookout lightship in North Carolina. Then an unidentified crewman aboard the Carroll A. Deering contacted the lightship, informing that the ship had lost its anchors. Captain Jacobson duly acknowledged this, but was unable to report it as his radio was not working. But the captain did note strange behaviour of the crew of the Carroll A. Deering, who were milling around on the foredeck looking suspicious. Then 2 days later, on the morning of January 31st, the schooner was spotted by C.P. Brady of the Cape Hatteras Coast Guard Station and reported that it had run aground on Diamond Shoals, which extends many miles out from Cape Hatteras and is considered to be one of the most dangerous spots on the Atlantic seaboard. The schooner's sails were still set, but its lifeboats were missing and where the crew had obviously abandoned the schooner. Rough seas had prevented any surf boats from initially reaching the wreck, but they were eventually able to board the schooner on February 4, 1921. As expected, they found that the crew members had abandoned the ship along with their personal belongings, navigational equipment and papers. Strangely though, after an extensive inquiry by the FBI, they could find no trace of the crew along with the ship's log. They had completely vanished. Today, the mystery of the Carroll A. Deering is one of the most discussed maritime mysteries of the 20th century. As to the schooner's fate, along with its crew and remains an unsolved mystery. There were many wild and unfounded rumours, but nothing substantial was ever proved and remained a mystery that was never solved. Speculation continues even to the present, and no satisfactory explanation for the crew's disappearance has ever been proven. The Carroll A. Deering was scuttled and sunk in March 1921 to prevent it from becoming a shipping hazard.